Hi guys, hi. How's it going? How you doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today I am doing my palette roulette and it feels like I haven't done this in forever, and it's been about I think 6 weeks at this point since the last one. And for those of you who don't know, Palette Roulette is a series on my channel in which I choose a palette that is in my collection that might also be in your collection, because it's not always about the brandest, newest, boldest thing out on the market, but it's really just about getting use out of the products that I have in my collection, the palettes specifically that I have in my collection. And I review it. I utilize it for an entire week all on its own. I come back, I tell you my thoughts and experiences on the palette, give you some fun facts about the palette, show you some pictures of the looks I was able to create. We do some live swatches and then we move on. We pick another palette. I took the whole month of September off because it was my birthday month. I didn't really want to come and do all the palette roulette content that, I mean, it's one video a week out of my 3 videos a week that I post. So I wanted some free reign, some, creativity to be flowing through my veins through the month of September, because I had a lot that I wanted to do in terms of also like makeup collection videos and whatnot. So I didn't do this all through the month of September. Instead, I really focused in on my single shadow collection and got some use out of those. I have a ton of looks to put up here on the screen. The sad part is that for the majority of the month, I forgot to take a picture of myself and a picture of the shadows that I used during that session. I think there's only maybe 3 pictures of me in the look that I created, and including the shadows that I used to create those. But I do have thoughts on every single one of these shadows. I'm not going to go through every single one of these shadows. There's like 180 of them, so we'd be here all dang day. But I am going to show you the ones that I have elected to absolutely say, no way, I don't want you in my collection anymore, and give you some, key thoughts on some of my favorites that I found myself driving towards every single time I picked up these palettes and went to use them. With that said, hi, for those of you new here, my name is Donna. I am a lover of all things high-end, colorful beauty and self-care. I also work in the beauty industry as a field leader for Ulta Beauty. Get a lot of education in my position. I like to bring you that education, but the true tea here is I just like to talk about makeup. And I'm assuming that if you're here, you also like to talk about makeup. So welcome. I hope that you enjoy yourself. I hope that you find something that you love here on my channel. I do have about 900 videos out there for you to choose from. And I hope that you find that I'm as much a kick in the pants to be around as I think I am. And you'll want to subscribe before you go. With that said, let's roll into this palette roulette. And we're going to talk about some single eyeshadows. Alrighty, alright. So here we are. It is really early in the morning and I'm trying to get this filmed because I don't want to be up all night editing. I have 3 different single shadow magnetic palettes that I utilized throughout the last 6 weeks to just really hone in and get some use out of my single eyeshadow collection. And I do have several that I have elected to declutter coming out of this, but I really just want to go through single eyeshadows. When I first got into makeup, about 5 years ago at this point, I did buy so many single eyeshadows from ColourPop, and a lot of those have since left my collection. To be honest, I think there might have been 4 or 3. I would have to look at my spreadsheet to be clear exactly, but there's only a handful of them left besides my Super Shock shadows that I elected to keep. And this single shadow, time frame only dealt with my magnetic pans, the ones that I kept in these palettes here. This palette is only partially full, so I only have one side of it that has any kind of shadows in them. And it's not even a full side of the shadow palette. As you can see, there are some holes in there. I did pull a couple out of this palette. This palette I got, I think, on Amazon. It was a really great deal. At the time, this housed all of my single eyeshadows. Now I have this guy, which I got from Colored Rain not that long ago. And it has 3 pages, so to speak, of eyeshadows. And you guys can see there are some holes. I did also pull some out of these guys. And then I also, and it was full at one point in time. And then I also have these, which are my Clionadh shadows. So I'm going to start with these guys. And I am also going to stick up in the eye here or there, or wherever it goes, the video that I have called Swatch Party. And it's where I go through all of these and we swatch all of these because I'm not going to be doing any swatching today. You're going to see a bunch of different pictures floating through the screen, and we're just going to talk about the eyeshadows and what I got rid of, and then we're going to pull a palette to go after next week. This is my Clionadh eyeshadows. I have 17 eyeshadows from the stained glass collection, all different parts of the stained glass collection. I don't know, they're multi-chromes. And then I have this one that was sent as a free gift with purchase that is just a regular shimmer shadow that is also beautiful in its own right. But these are my pride and joy. These cost me so much money and I won't be getting rid of any of them. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking about adding to my collection. But for now, these truly are amazing, amazing eyeshadows. If you do not have any Clionadh eyeshadows and you are a multi-chrome fan, my suggestion is for you to pick some up. Now, I know that there are some amazing other multi-chrome eyeshadows out there. My friend Mary does lives on her multi-chromes all the time, and I just drool over some of the multi-chromes that she has. I really do want to pick some up, but right now, those are all I need in my collection. This palette housed like backflow, right? It had all of my grays and whites and blacks, but it also housed backflow of like pinks and reds and purples and greens that I could no longer fit into this palette. Now in this we have some Ofra, like these ones here specifically are from the Ofra Glitch palettes. And these two I kept. I love them. I think that they're gorgeous. They're really pretty. And then we have some ColourPop in here. But for the most part, my single eyeshadow collection is 90% Sydney Grace. So there's a ton of Sydney Grace in here. And what is in here also came to me for the most part through the most recent Christmas and July sale that I took part in. I spent $100. I got $100 worth of free product, and 21 items in that free product were eyeshadows. So that's the same can be said for what's in here. It's 90% Sydney Grace. I will tell you this one here is, I believe, Hikari, and I think this one is the same. They are from, yeah, this is Hikari Fierce, which is a beautiful kind of like orange-red shimmer. And this is actually from the Moods palette, which is a palette that I just sent off in my giveaway by Laura Sanchez, or Laura Sanchez. I almost said Lindsay, but that's not the right. Lindsay Sanchez is not the one that made the palette. I believe her name is Laura Sanchez. I do think the rest of these are all Sydney Grace eyeshadows. So this one is one that I purchased. I actually purchased. It is a duochrome from Sydney Grace, and it is in the shade Twisted Shifter. It's a really pretty like purple, green, golden almost. I think that they say that it is a multi-chrome, but I do see kind of some multi-chromal tendencies to it. But I think it's mostly duochromatic. The rest are just regular single shadows, right? We have some shimmers in here. We have some mattes in here. And everything in here I will be keeping. I used every single one of these shadows. I love every single one of these shadows. This purple, I think, is actually ABH. No, it's Sydney Grace. What was I thinking? And it is one of my favorite purple shimmers because it's just so electric. It's such a beautiful, beautiful shimmer. These are all staying. I love these shadows. Now what is left are the ones in the Colored Rain palette. And the ones in the Colored Rain palette, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure I'm keeping every single thing in here. I can tell you this is my like neutrals, yellows, oranges. On this page of this book, most of these will be kept. I just really like an orange eyeshadow, a sunsetty eye, if you will. And I think that all of these shadows are beautiful. Most of them are Sydney Grace. These two are actually out of the Ofra Glitch palettes. I'm not 100% sold on these two. You will see in the ones that I decluttered that most of the Ofra Glitch palette shades went. They just weren't as impactful as I thought that they would be for Ofra shadows that are shimmers. You would think that they'd be much like their highlighters, but they just don't have the same oomph, and I really like the shimmers on my lids to give me a little bit of oomph. But I think that that's all that's in here. There might be an occasional color pop in here, but for the most part, this is all Sydney Grace. These are super hard to get out of here. Otherwise, I would show you which ones were color pop and which ones weren't. You can see there's one that came out of this page. Of all of the ones on this page, that is the only one that I elected to say, nope, I'm not dealing with it anymore as of right now. The second page in this book is all, well, not all, but blues and greens. So these are the blues and greens that are in this single shadow magnetic pan. There are two that are missing. I did pull those ones out. There are a few in this page that I also think I will end up pulling out. This one is one of those Ofra shadows. I really kind of love this one, but it looks a lot to me in use like this one does. The only difference is that this one's a matte and this one's kind of satiny or shimmery, and that is why I think I kept both, but I need to kind of drill down whether I'm going to keep it or not. I don't need two blues the same shade. I use blue not very often, and having this many blues, plus I have the ABH Norvina palette with all those blues and greens, like I don't necessarily need all these, to be honest. There is also this dark blue I have in my eye look today, and this dark green I have in my eye look today, and I'm really, really disappointed with how this dark blue, you know, performed. So I can see that there's a lot of fading already. There was a ton of patchiness with it. So I am on the fence about this dark blue also. So there might be two more shades that are leaving this collection of blues and greens. But other than that, the rest are staying. Now, I will say I had a really hard time. I think the reason why I quit taking pictures is because every time I tried to take these shadows out of here, I damaged the shadow. I don't know if you guys can see this shadow. I damaged the hell out of these shadows trying to get them out. Whether I was using a magnet or a spatula, like I always damaged the shadow. And I was not about damaging my shadows over and over again. So that's why I quit pulling them out to take pictures of my eye looks with them. But this is where we saw the most turn. Now there are quite a few shadows that are missing from this section. And what I will say I found myself wishing for was, even though I have a lot of like pinks and purples in here, I don't have a whole lot of purples, honestly, in my single shadow collection. And none of my purples are mattes. And I found that to be frustrating over the last 6 weeks. Like I was consistently pulling my Huda Beauty, you know, Haze palette up there because it has purples in it. And that's what I was using for a purple matte when I was using this. And that was frustrating to me with 180 single shadows that I have that I had to also pull from another palette to get a matte purple. But I will say that is the only color that I felt like I lacked over the last 6 weeks. I didn't find myself pulling for another palette ever for the last 6 weeks. So could I live on just my single shadows alone? I absolutely could, as long as I had also a matte purple. I was actually pretty shocked. I thought that I was going to be pulling for palettes over and over and over again. That just wasn't the case. This section did see a lot of turn in what's in this section. You can see that there are 6 empty spaces in this section because I just found so many that I couldn't bear to deal with. These two I also am on the fence about. Again, these are the Ofra shadows. For whatever reason, when I initially, and I'll put those palette roulettes up in the cards as well, when I first got the glitch palettes in, I thought they were going to perform much like the Ofra highlighters do, because they have the same like imprint on them that the highlighters do. And then when I reviewed those palettes, I also thought that they performed okay, but not as great as I thought that they were going to perform. And honestly, I was only using them for the most part on my lid space because they're supposed to be shimmers. This time around, I really did try and use them for multiple reasons, and I just didn't really find that I loved them. I'm also on the fence with this one, which I don't think performs very great on my skin. I just don't think it's a flattering skin tone. And honestly, if I'm going to pull for a lighter shade of purple, it's going to be the one right beneath it before it'll be that one. So I'm kind of on the fence with that one as well. So there might be 3 more moving out of the purple pink row or page in this palette. So let's walk through the ones that I know I'm decluttering. And y'all know I got rid of, I think, 12 single eyeshadows when I did my swatch party with my single eyeshadows. So going through this process and using my singles over the last 6 weeks, I have another 10 single eyeshadows that I'm getting rid of. So these are the 10 single eyeshadows that I'm getting rid of. These 5 are all from the Ofra Glitch palettes. You guys, of the first 12 that I got rid of, a good majority of those were also from the Ofra Glitch palettes. I cannot say enough, don't purchase those palettes. They're just not great. Like, I think of all the colors here, the only one that I thought, maybe I should keep that, is this purple one, and that's because I could make it perform quasi-matte-ish, but it still had too much sheeniness to it to be a matte that I could take all the way up like I do with a lot of my other like colors. And then this one also I kind of went back and forth with, but I have another one of these and that is just a slightly darker gray in my palette still that looks just like that one. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get rid of one. I picked this one. It's less impactful. This one is a ColourPop. This one is ColourPop Pretty Cruel, and this one has been in my collection for like legit probably 6 years. This one I believe is, yeah, this one is Ofra, and it's from one of the big like boho or something like that palettes that has all the products in it, like face products and eyeshadows in it. This one is a Sydney Grace one, and I was really saddened by it, but this is in Seafoam. It's a really beautiful, like, mint green, like, really pastel mint green, white-based mint green, but I hate it on me, and it just kind of turned into this really dirty, almost yellow on my skin tone. So it made me look sick more than it did anything else. So I am getting rid of that one. And then this one is a no-namer. I have no idea who this one is from. And to be honest, I did use this one quite a bit, but the more and more I used it, the more and more I realized I also did not like it on my skin tone. I constantly found myself going back over it with a different color to brighten it up or deepen it. It just was one of those tones that didn't look good on my skin tone. This one here, I really did love. This is Hikari Envy, and I really did love it, but what I found to be true is that this one here, which I love more, looked so similar, and this one here fits into, you know, my palettes in a way that it doesn't cannibalize on the other space in the palette for other shadows, whereas this one does. This one is quite a bit larger than, you know, a regular size eyeshadow pan, so it takes up a lot more space, and I have to have a separate magnetic palette to fit it, whereas for the most part I would love to get my single shadow collection to fit into this one book instead of 3. Now granted, these will never fit into this book because these are square pans and these are round. But if I could get all of these into this book at one point in time, I would be a happy camper. So with that said, these are the 10 eyeshadows that are leaving my collection. So over the last, several weeks, we have decluttered not only these, but also the ones that I decluttered in Swatch Party. And I felt really proud of myself for getting rid of those ones as well. A lot of those went to my daughter. Probably a lot of these will also go to my daughter. What are your guys' experiences with single shadows? I would be interested to hear. Again, my single shadow collection really hones in on Sydney Grace. I've had ColourPop. I have a couple of singles from other brands that you don't really hear a lot of because I got them in BoxyCharm or IPSY or whatever. And then of course my Clionadh shadows. Ofra shadows I have realized I just don't love. I didn't love the matte version of Ofra shadows that were in the big boho palettes. I also am just not a fan of the glitch ones. So I think that I have a sweet spot for eyeshadows from the single format. ColourPop does well. I just think that Sydney Grace is better for the same price. And there are some other ones along this realm that I would love to get my hot little hands on. But those will have to wait until I curate this single shadow collection a little bit more. But do tell me your experiences with single shadows. I would be interested to hear your thoughts. And with that said, I'm going to pull the palette that we'll be utilizing over the next week for Palette Roulette, because I do plan on starting this series back up through the holidays. It's an easy, video for me to do. I love doing it. You guys seem to love them as well. And I can't wait to utilize the next palette on the list. So I'll be right back. All right, my friends, the next palette on the list is a palette that I wanted so bad when it first came out. And I'm glad I waited to some extent because it means more to me now than it did then. But I also am sad that I waited because I have a feeling this is going to be one that, maybe everybody on the planet has and nobody cares about anymore. But the palette that I will be reviewing for next week is going to be, speaking of Sydney Grace, the Sydney Grace Tiny Marvels palette. Now, for those of you around the beauty community, this is the collaboration with Mel Thompson that Sydney Grace did. And for those of you in the beauty community, you also know that Mel Thompson left us. And that was a very sad day for most of us. She was iconic, is iconic. Her videos are still out there on the YouTube space. And she's just a breath of fresh air when it comes to the influencers in this community. And I don't really ever think that she thought of herself as, high and mighty like so many other influencers do. She just has the sweetest soul on the planet, and we should all emulate to be just like her. But she's beautiful, creative, and I loved her. I loved watching her. She was amazing. So I just picked this up in the Sydney Grace Christmas in July sale that they did, and I personally cannot wait to get it on my face. Now, with that said, I have used one shadow out of this already, and it is this deep brown, and I love this deep brown. Its name is Spider. I love this palette. I am super excited to use it, to work with it. I've heard nothing but great things about this palette, and I love Sydney Grace, as you guys know, because 90% of my singles are Sydney Grace singles. With that said, I am going to keep my singles on top of my vanity. I feel like I will probably pull for them still from time to time as I'm still making decisions on the eyeshadows that I am going to elect to get rid of. But with that said, this will be the palette that I am reviewing next week. I hope that you are intrigued, and I hope that you'll want to come back and visit my channel next week to see my thoughts and opinions on the eye looks that I can create with this palette. And with that said, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you had an amazing time. I hope that you loved it or me so much that you want to subscribe before you go. Again, I would love to welcome you into my YouTube fam here. I'm trying to hit that 1,000 by the end of the year. Please be one of my 1,000. I would love to have you. Let me know if you do. I would love to say hi. Welcome to the fam down in the comments section, but definitely hit me up in the comments section because, again, I just like to talk about makeup. So with that being said, again, you guys, I hope that you all are doing well. I hope that you and yours are healthy and safe and sound and getting along as best you can in this world that we're living in. And I hope that you are all loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, bye, friends.